Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's Joe's Hot Takes 25. This is where we ask questions, challenge assumptions, we dig into history, we leave it up to you, let you decide where you stand. Today is a very special one. Today, we're going to talk about America and celebrating America's 250th birthday. So, happy birthday, America. You know, 250 years sounds like a long time, but it's that fast. And so we are really just a baby still. We're just baby country. But we've accomplished a lot in 250 years. And in that 250 years, there's been really great things happen. There's been some not so great things happen. But that's what growing up is all about. Think about how you grow up, right? We learn as we go. We learn to crawl. From crawling, we learn to walk. From walking, we learn to run. And every day we learn more and we learn more, and we get better and better at understanding what yesterday was like and making it a little different for today and for the future. So we learn as we go, and America's learning. We're growing, we're learning. Gosh, give this beautiful country some grace. And let's jump into this. So this isn't really a hot take, right? America's birthday is in itself is not a hot take. So nobody's storming social media arguing that the 4th of July didn't happen. But as always, we can take a familiar topic and ask some uncomfortable questions. We can do that. And so, yeah, let's do it. Let's jump into it. I kind of wanted to start out with, let's go back 250 plus years and ask this question. Why did the people living in America and the American colonies basically decide that they needed to break away from England? What brought all that up? And, what was so important to that a group of farmers, merchants, lawyers, revolutionaries had risked everything to build an entirely new nation, that they left England to come here and build a completely new nation. So what drives that, and why, and then I really kind of have this question: how many Americans even know that four foundational documents helped shape our country to become what it is today? So let's just do it. Let's jump in. One of the most controversial questions of all: when people criticize colonization and the expansion of America, are they looking at history through a practical lens or through a modern lens that ignores how the world actually worked at that time? So we have to really look back in time. Remember, we were talking, as soon as I started this, I said, we grow just like this country is a baby and it's growing. And we as people do the same. We grow. But we have to look back, like, so many times I hear this. Okay, so I was born back in the 60s. In the 60s, cereal boxes still had toys in them. So everybody looked forward to that, right? You shake the cereal box, dig in there, dig the toy out. That was great. There were all kinds of different things going on. Color TV had just kind of came along, really, or at least in my house back in those days. It wasn't a big deal. Color, all of a sudden, boom, we have color TVs. Everything had been black and white before that. So there's growing and there's learning. And if we tried to take today and look at it for back there, like people always say, well, back in my day, back in the day this, back in the day that. Well, back in the day, America was different. The way people lived was different. People's morals, values, and ideals were a little different than they are today. So, and again, we've grown as a country. So we learn, and every generation brings new things. Interesting. But sometimes we like to look look at the country and go, oh, look at what this country's done over the last 250 years. And some things are terrible, but boy, let me tell you, a lot of things are really fantastic, what our country has accomplished in 250 years. So, I guess let's ask this question: where would any of us, I don't care if you're black, white, if you're Hispanic, Asian, a Native American, where would we be today if history had unfolded differently? I want you to just think about that for a moment. Had history have unfolded differently, where would we be? Would we even be Americans? Take that in. Would we even be Americans had things been different? Okay. Before we get too deep into the debate, let's talk about something surprisingly few people know. I'm finding this out as I do some research. So most Americans can name the Declaration of Independence, and many certainly can identify the Constitution. And there's a good number of people out there that have heard of the Bill of Rights. But ask any average person to name all four foundational documents of the United States. What really is our foundation? There's four documents. And you'll probably get a blank stare followed by a Google search. And I'm not going to lie, I did Google search because I'm trying to get the broadest picture I can to paint for everyone. So the first document is the Declaration of Independence. That was adopted, of course, in 1776. This was the nation's birth certificate, okay? So that's the Declaration of Independence, 1776, America's birth certificate. It formally declared separation from Great Britain and laid out the philosophical, I'm getting excited. I love this. The philosophical foundation of the new country. So this is where we find those famous words that all men, and of course, that's the way we talked back then, were created equal and are endowed with certain unalienable rights. Okay. The primary author was Thomas Jefferson, although many others contributed to the final version. Okay, so that was in 1776. That's our little birth certificate. Next comes the Constitution of the United States. This comes in 1787. 1787. The Constitution, so we have our birth certificate. Now, this is, if you will, our instruction manual, okay? It established the framework for the federal government and divided power among three branches. Now, the key architect here was James Madison, who earned the nickname the father of the Constitution. All right, now, after the Constitution comes the Bill of Rights. This is in 1791. These are the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. They protect freedoms most Americans take for granted today. The freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of press, due process, the right to bear arms, and several others. Again, James Madison played a really central role in developing these Bill of Rights. Okay. Now, finally, we have what we call the forgotten founding document, and that is the Articles of Confederation. Now, these were drafted during the Revolutionary War. The Articles served as America's first Constitution. The founders had just fought the king, and they viewed the king was too powerful. So they intentionally created a weak central government. Turns out they may have overcorrected a little bit. So they were trying to get away from the tyranny of having this king and England and taxes and being told what to do, when to do it, how to do it. Sound familiar? It's kind of happening today. You see this. And people were very, very dependent on the king and the country. And that was the only way that some people survived, was through the power of this kingdom. And here we've tried to say, look, all men are created equal, and you have certain rights and freedoms, and we don't want to be held down by tyranny. We don't want to be told every minute of every day what to do, how to do it. So the original draft was kind of weak, because we wanted our freedom. That's why we were here. Okay, so so they may have overcorrected a little bit, right? So the federal government, under the Articles, lacked the authority needed to effectively govern the growing nation, which eventually led to the drafting of the Constitution. So together, these four documents laid the foundation for the American experiment. Now, here's the interesting part. What made these documents different? After all governments existed long before America. Kings ruled kingdoms. Empires controlled continents. Laws existed everywhere. That wasn't nothing new. So what was so revolutionary about this? Well, the first major difference was sovereignty. And for most of human history, power flowed downward, right? Kings ruled because, well, they ruled. They were in charge of everything. Governments granted freedoms because they decided citizens could have them. So the American founders really flipped that model upside down, and the opening words of the Constitution say it all. We the people. We the people, not we the king, not we the government. We the people possess the power. Basically, the people possesses the power. It doesn't go top down, it goes bottom up. The government only receives the authority that citizens choose to give it. That was a radical idea back then. And in many parts of the world, it remains a radical idea today, right? Just look what's happening in Iran, right? You have this religious sect, this religious government, this one supreme leader overseeing the entire country. It's in a lot of Middle Eastern countries. You see it in North Korea with the supreme leader, Kim Jong-un. You see this all over the world in different locations. But here, we don't have that. And so the second thing that's a little bit different is how rights were viewed. So many governments focus on what the state will provide for citizens. The Bill of Rights focuses largely on what the government cannot do. So Congress shall make no law. Government shall not infringe. Government shall not violate. The founders weren't creating a list of gifts from the government. They were creating a list of restrictions on the government. Think about that for a moment. Just think about that, right? And the whole idea is less government. The government should be focused on several things. Protection of the country, protection of the country through a strong military, and the economics of the country. The country has to make money. They have to make money. They have to have trade. There has to be a flow. Very much a business. Very, very much a business. And so let's see what happens with this, right? So for just a moment, think, do you want all that big government telling you what to do, how to do it, when to do it? Do you want government to be in control of everything, handing out food, handing out rides, handing out clothing, housing, things like that? Do you want the government handing that out? Because if the government's handing it out, you're probably going to see a lot of oppression, because they have a lot of people to hand all this stuff out to. And where's the money coming from to do it? So interesting, very, very interesting. So there's a third difference, and that's the founders' deep, deep distrust of concentrated power. So that the founders really looked at this and said, when power is concentrated into one small location, then the people have really no freedoms, no rights. So, kind of honestly, if you look back, history gave plenty of reasons for this. History gave these founding fathers plenty of reasons to not have concentrated power. So they assumed that human beings would eventually abuse authority if given enough of it. And it's true. Look across the globe where you have one dictator in charge of a country, and how are the people below that dictator treated? You see it in communism, the socialist idea of let's spread everything out and make it fair for everybody. It doesn't really work that way. And if you think it does, then look back at some of these failed uh, um, architects of these ideas. They're very flawed. So what we have with democracy seems to be a really cool thing, but it's new. It's kind of new. 250 years. This is, like I said, it's just a blip on the map. So they intentionally built friction into this system, right? So you have, and I mentioned it before, these three branches of government. So you have your legislative branch, and that checks the executive branch, basically. The legislative branch is the branch that really kind of makes the laws, comes up with the ideas. And then you have the executive branch, which checks the judicial branch. Now, the judicial branch is the one that makes sure that these laws and rules that they came up with are fair and equitable and handled properly. Whereas the executive branch will then enforce these laws or these ideas. Okay, so states in the United States, states have powers. A lot of times the states have powers the federal government says we don't want to get involved in. It's your state, you decide what you want to do. That's really, really cool. Instead of having one federal government tell everybody this is the way you're going to live. Look, I'm not going to make any bones about it. I'm not a big fan of a couple of our states, right? Right? Some of the things that go on, especially in California, you look at California, look at New York right now. Look what's happening in those two states. And I don't want to live like that. So guess what? I don't live in New York and I don't live in California. There's a reason for that. And I moved to a state where I feel that I have rights, I am protected, and I can enjoy my freedoms here. Okay? So you have that choice. That's a beautiful thing. You have a beautiful thing because the federal government isn't dictating what everybody's going to do. All right. Now, they do in some ways, but that's okay. The federal government definitely has powers, but nobody gets all the toys. Nobody gets all the toys in this. It's messy, it's inefficient. Sometimes it's frustrating. But that was the point. The founders preferred slow government over unchecked government. Slow government over unchecked. And we say, wow, government moves at a snail's pace. It really does. But that's because there's so many outside influences involved. You see it on the floor of the Senate and the House where the Congress, the Senate, they're fighting, they're arguing, they're bickering. But in the end, something gets resolved. And that's okay. That's what it's supposed to do. It's kind of like this podcast. The whole idea is to get you thinking, get you doing your research, make up your mind based on facts, based on information that you have, so that you can make an educated decision. And that's what this government is really based on, is people making educated decisions. And the people have control. And we have control through voting. As a matter of fact, I voted today. So, good thing. So that lets the cat out of the bag. I'm recording this on June 16th. So I did vote today. Okay, now, um, we did we as Americans did build a peaceful method of change. There was no real tyranny uh, involved. We were able to push the British out. We were able to establish our own rules, regulations in our own country. The British were excited at that point, along with other foreign countries, were very excited to do business with the United States, and things were happening. Now, a new nation was being born. There was commerce. There was trade. It was beautiful. Things were starting to happen. But understand this, most governments throughout history changed through revolution, which we do, just not yet, war, coups, or they just collapse. So the Constitution created an amendment process so that future generations could adapt the system without burning it down. So that's why we are given the opportunity to make amendments to our Constitution. Now, the forefathers were really brilliant because they were looking way, way ahead, probably at this 250-year mark, saying, if America is still a country and we're still a democracy in 250 years, things are going to be different. Now, I'm pretty sure they didn't think we were going to have cell phones or be sending ships into outer space, going to the moon. I don't think that they thought of that. I think, though, that they knew there were going to be a series of progress and things that were going to change and that we would have to learn to adapt to. And we did. Look at some of our amendments today. We've really adapted. Slavery's gone, women's rights, women's voting rights, and now you have gay marriage rights. You have different rights, you have different things, you have different amendments that are brought in to protect the democracy and to enhance the people. Okay. So that's one of the reasons I think why the Constitution remains the oldest written national constitution still actively in use today worldwide. Our Constitution. Why? Because we didn't make it a hard line. We made it very amendable so that we could make amendments, so that we could make changes, so that we could grow with it, so that our country could grow and our Constitution as well could grow, adapt, and prosper. Okay, so let's move into a part that'll I'll probably get some interesting emails about this because I hear about this from time to time, and it really is just a thorn personally, but it's colonization. Now, you will hear people today that will describe America as a nation built by colonizers who stole the land from the indigenous peoples. Okay, there is no question, no argument here that there was displacement. Absolutely, there were displacements of peoples. There's no questions that native populations suffered tremendous losses. Those are historical facts, right? But here's the question. I think it often gets overlooked. What would have happened if America had never formed? It's easy to imagine history just standing still, right? So we can easily go, oh, if we wouldn't have, if we would not have, if the colonizers or the colonies, call them what you want, if the people would not have came here from England and set up their colonies, what would America look like? And even if they did, and they only stayed in maybe, let's just say, the original states. Now, it's easy for us to just lock that into time and go, well, it would be great. There'd be herds of buffalo running across the plains. The American Indian would still be traveling across the plains, excuse me, following the herds. All kinds of cool things would be happening. A lot of California, Nevada, Arizona would still be part of Mexico, probably handled by Mexico still to this day. Other parts of the lower central southern areas would have been probably handled by the French, just like they were during these times. There was a huge French influence, and so, this is going to be surprising to some people, but Russia actually reached down nearly into the California region back in those days. So imagine time stands still. Would that have happened, or would the French have pushed to take more land? Would the Mexicans push to take more land? Would the Russians push to take more land? Would those three groups, the French, the Russians, and the Mexicans, would those armies have collided somewhere along the line and just changed everything? We don't know, but I can tell you this: time does not stand still. Time does not stand still. So try to really look back at America in those days as it was, and understanding that change was coming. Nobody could stop it. It was coming. It came all over the world, and very much in the same ways. People being displaced, people being enslaved, people being converted to different religions, converted to different cultures, things like that. So the reality is, history really doesn't just stand still. It doesn't. So the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries were dominated by these competing empires. And one that I kind of left out was Britain, even though Britain was, there was definitely a push with Britain. So Spain, France, Britain, Russia. And guess what? There were two other countries that got their fingers into the cookie jar, and that was Germany and Japan back in those times. Germany and Japan. So these powers were all racing to claim territory. They were looking for what? They were looking for resources. They were looking for trade. They were looking for strategic ports, new routes. All of these people from all of these different countries wanted this land for what it offered. And so time was not going to stand still. If one nation didn't expand into a region, another one usually did. And this happened globally. So look back through history at many of the different empires and how they were formed and what happened with them. It's the same thing. Russia had already established, this is crazy. Russia had already established settlements in Alaska and even reached Northern California. Back in the 17th, 18th, 19th centuries, Russia had already reached down to Northern California. You might be speaking Russian and we could be communists. Well, California, what do you know? Okay, Spain controlled an enormous portion of the American Southwest. And then France controlled the vast Louisiana territory, which ultimately we purchased, which was a really great bargain, especially at that time. And then Britain remained a dominant global force during these times. So throughout the Pacific, major powers competed aggressively for the islands. And why? Naval positions. So had the United States of America not expanded, not looked at manifest destiny, had not at some point looked at strategic ports, strategic places, Hawaii, Guam, Puerto Rico, right? The U.S. Virgin Islands, areas of the Caribbean, areas of the Pacific, where we could protect our country, because other countries were already starting to do that. And we had to be prepared if we were going to continue to be a country. So when you talk about colonization, remember that the colonizers were worldwide. Everybody was colonizing. And, you know, America, to be what we are today, we didn't have a choice. It was either grow and become powerful, or succumb to, if it's not Britain, it's Spain. If it's not Spain, it could be Russia. If it's not Russia, possibly France. Think about that for a second. Time doesn't stand still, folks. Okay. So, in other words, if one empire didn't occupy a space, somebody else was coming, right? They're coming. And that's not an endorsement for imperialism. It's just simply a reality of the time. Countries, governments were trying to secure land and resources. Okay. So then there's the question about our indigenous nations here in America. Without the American expansion, would native populations have remained entirely independent? I don't know. It's hard to say. Maybe some may have been able to stay independent. Because look back into the 1800s and you'll see that many indigenous nations were very sophisticated politically and militarily. They had really strong military powers and they were very well organized. Now, I'm going to totally ruin this, but it's the Haudenosaunee Confederacy in the Northeast and the Comanche Empire in the Southwest demonstrated remarkable strength and organization. So it is possible that some native nations could have evolved into modern sovereign states. That could have probably happened, but did they have the power and the ingenuity and the resources to fight off these European countries that were coming in and Asian countries coming in that had much stronger firepower and much more modern warfare equipment? So I don't know, but good question. Good question. Let's not make that one a hot take. But it's possible they would have faced similar pressures from these other expanding powers. Now, would these other expanding powers have treated them the same way? I don't know. When you look back in history and you look back at some of these other countries and some of the things that they've done, you talk about the Spanish. There was genocides happening in the islands across the Bahamas, all the Caribbean islands, basically. Genocide and taking all these people into slavery. So, there's a good chance that one of these European countries would have taken over. And quite honestly, I think it would be a reality that our indigenous may have been really cast into slavery and may have never gotten out had they not had the American Constitution that came along that allowed for these changes and amendments and growth of a country. Because if you look at the countries today, can you imagine if Russia would have actually came down and taken over that area and grabbed them up? And what if Spain or what if France had grown that large and had that much power and that much more land? Would they become more dominant? Would they be the world dominating power? I mean, I don't know. But the way it is today, the United States of America is the world dominating power. The United States of America has put into effect laws and amendments to our Constitution to really be more inclusive of all peoples that live in America legally, that legally live in America. I want to say that. Okay. Whew, that was a lot. It was a lot. So we really don't know what would have happened. History doesn't, you can't really get alternative endings to history. What could have happened? I don't know. But what we do know is what did happen. And so that brings us to another question. And that is, what would the world look like without the United States? Think about it. Everyone, I want you to just absorb this for just a moment. What would our world look like without the United States? I want you to think about the world wars. They would have unfolded completely differently. Agreed? Things would have been much, much different. Would Nazi Germany have been defeated when it was, had it not been for the United States of America? Would Imperial Japan have been stopped if it were not for the power and might and military of the United States of America? Would the Cold War have ended in the same way if it weren't for the power and might of the United States of America? And would the global economy operate under entirely different financial systems than it does today? I mean, these are great questions. Certainly, I don't have the answers, and I don't know that there's easy answers. But it's difficult to deny that America's industrial capacity, military strength, technical innovation, and economic influence shaped the modern world in profound ways. So, this group of people that said, I'm getting away from the tyranny of this king, and I'm going to go to this new country, this untamed land, and they set up their colonies, and and thus this country began to grow and expand, and their military might grew and expanded, and our industrial might grew and expanded, and our technical innovations and our economic influences grew and expanded, and wow, here we are. Now, is America perfect? Well, I don't know that any country is perfect, but I'll tell you, I can't think of another country that I personally would want to live in. But the point is this: history is complicated. And, it's really important to take it in and understand that it's far more complicated than just a slogan on social media. Or sometimes we judge the past using standards that didn't even exist at the time, right? Now there's this whole movement out there saying, you're living on stolen land because you took it from the indigenous people. Okay, first of all, I don't know anybody that's 250 years old, so none of us were around. We are the offspring of generations that were involved in making this happen. Agreed. And what did we do as we grew as a country and as we grew as generations? We made amendments to our Constitution. We became more inclusive. We found ways to be more respectful and to give back in the best ways that we could at the time, to give back to our indigenous peoples. So the question really goes back. Did we steal their land? Well, they were here first, and they were definitely displaced. So you can call it what you want, but they could be speaking Russian. They could be speaking French. They could be speaking Spanish. But because it's the United States of America, they now are speaking English. And we, as a country, recognize their culture, the culture of our indigenous, from Alaska through the Maine lower 48, and even through Hawaii and the Caribbean. We recognize their cultures, and we provide for their cultures so that these folks can keep their cultures, keep their languages, and we don't oppress them. Even though some people say that we are colonizers and we have oppressed all these people and stolen their lands. But these people are free. These people are free to continue with their cultures, their history, their languages, all these things. I think it's a beautiful thing. I don't think you'd see that in other countries that could have taken over what is now the United States of America. Oh, wow. There's a lot. So it really, I need to add this, right? And I've already mentioned it, but I just kind of want to send this home. Sometimes we forget that many of our freedoms that we enjoy today, they emerged from decisions made centuries ago by imperfect people facing impossible circumstances. And we are reaping the rewards, and we are given the ability to change things as we grow. Amazing. So before somebody fires up their keyboard, writes a 12-page comment explaining why Joe here lost his mind, let's be clear. You don't have to celebrate every single decision made in America. You don't. That's the beauty of it. You don't have to celebrate that. You don't have to ignore mistakes. It's okay to talk about them because that's how we grow. Let me ask you this. The first time I'm trying to think of something that probably everybody's experienced. I don't know, the first time you touched a hot stove, you learned something. And what you learned was, don't touch a hot stove, you're going to get burned. So when you had children, what did you tell your children? Don't touch the hot stove. It's going to burn you. Now, 50-50. Some children were like, I don't believe you. I'm going to check it out myself. And they got burned. Some say, yeah, I believe you. It looks like it's hot. I'm not going to touch it. But what I'm getting at is they learn. We learn. We grow. We become better. And that's the beauty of America. Man, I have really gone way past our time, but I'm going to keep going. I know this is going to be a long one, but that's okay. So we don't ignore our mistakes. We don't ignore those. We learn from those. And we don't have to pretend that history was flawless. And that's the beauty of America. We can talk about all of our history and the things that have happened here. And it's okay. And everybody should embrace that because that's how we got where we are. Now, you have to embrace it and you have to put it behind you. We can't keep looking backwards, folks. We have to look forward. We have to continue to look forward. When we look backwards and go, but you did this, or but somebody did that, or but these people were treated this way. Okay, but they're not today, so let's move forward. We cannot keep looking back. As much as our American media loves the controversy because it makes them so much money to keep things alive, racism alive, keep reparations alive, keep all this stuff alive, put it in the rearview mirror, folks. We need to just pony up, pull up your bootstraps. Let's move forward. Let's keep making our country great. Let's stop infighting. Let's start caring about each other. And as we grow and we change, our laws, our rules, everything can change. It's okay. We really have to recognize, I believe, the extraordinary achievements that have emerged out of these 250 years that are behind us now. So we talked a little bit about all the ugliness, but let's talk about some of the good things, right? There's an expansion of representative government. There's a huge expansion of representative government. That is so nice. That now it's up to us to put the right people in government. And if we don't, then, that's okay. 2 years, 4 years, you get rid of them, get somebody else in there. But we have a representative government that is controlled by who? By we the people. But you have to educate yourself. You have to be smart about what you're voting for, who you're voting for, and why you're voting for it. Don't just watch a TV ad and go out and vote. Do the research. I preach that on this podcast. Is do your research. All right. Our constitutional rights, right? We see a growth of constitutional rights. Why? Because of amendments, because of advancement, because we're learning, we're growing, and we're learning. Very simple. What about our technological innovation? Oh my gosh, look where we are today. Look at the things that this country has accomplished that no other country has. And some other countries are catching up. Some. Not all, a few. Think about that. Think about our scientific breakthroughs, our agricultural abundance. Right now, America in and of itself can take care of its own people. We have farming, we have power, we have water, we have room, we have space, we have everything needed to create a habitat. right? Everything for humans to survive, we can do right here. But through commerce and trade, a lot of things go out and other things come in. And that's okay. That's what it's all about. But we have agricultural abundance and we have economic opportunity, greater opportunity than anywhere else. Why are people wanting to come to America? I love this. I saw this the other day. A woman was saying, my country is a great country. My country is a great country that I came from. And they have great food and great people and great sports and a beautiful climate. And it's a wonderful, beautiful country that I came from. And so I didn't come to America because it's a better country. I came to America because there's more opportunities. You came to America because there's more opportunities, but it's not a better country. Okay. I'm sure that the country you came from, here in America, we have and offer the same things. I'm sure you can find food from your country. I'm sure you can find cultural things from your country, events, activities, and other things that were happening in your country, climates from your country. But you came here because you want something more that your country doesn't offer, that America offers. Keep that in mind. All right. Now, man, that was a lot. We really have this beautiful ability to criticize our government openly. And that's nice. We can do that and we don't disappear in the middle of the night, right? Look at Russia. How many people spoke out against Putin and they're gone? That doesn't happen here. That's really not just a universal luxury. That's here. 250 years later, all I got to say is this. Happy birthday, America. Happy birthday, USA. I love this country. I love our country. I love the freedoms that we enjoy. I appreciate the rights protected by our Constitution. And while every nation has strengths and weaknesses, I'm grateful every day that I was fortunate enough to be born here in the USA. Maybe, just maybe, this anniversary will allow us to set aside some of our differences, even if just for a moment. Just set aside our differences and take it in. 250 years, look where we're at, and look where we can go, and look what we can do. We don't have to suddenly agree on everything, but let's just do this. Let's put our differences aside, and let's just all share this beautiful, wonderful birthday party of our 250th birthday here in America. Now, I'm going to finish this with something positive, okay? I need positive. And here we go. What can ordinary Americans do to keep this country strong? Now, not politically, not through endless arguments online, but through practical actions. Well, let's see. Let's do this. How about we support innovation and productivity? We need to support that. Buy local. Now, I know this is going to sound bad. I'm probably going to get tons of emails on this. I only buy American-made vehicles. Now, I know. Oh, okay. I got a Chevy truck. It was assembled in Mexico or somewhere. Okay. The bottom line is it is a U.S. American company. I only buy U.S. company products, big products. Let's be honest. 90% of what I'm doing right here probably came from China. Probably the microphone, the camera, probably half of the parts inside my computer, the cables, the cords, everything, probably came from China. I can't control that. That's part of our commerce. It's part of going back and forth. But I try to buy as much as I can American. And whenever you can, support your small local businesses. Support those people. They're out there trying to make a dollar. And, they're trying to survive. They're paying taxes. They're employing our friends, our family, our neighbors. Support these small businesses and learn valuable skills. Folks, please learn valuable skills. I don't know how many people are amazed when I say, I fixed an electrical problem at my house, or my water line was leaking and I found the leak and I dug it up, cut the pipe, made the repairs. People are like, why didn't you call a plumber? Because I don't need a plumber. because I've learned valuable skills. I know how to build a house from the ground up. Can't fix a car, but I can build a house. And the other thing is this: encourage our young people to pursue science, engineering, technology, skilled trades, and entrepreneurship. I think that's really, really important. Push these young people for that. Get them out of this whole mindset of I'm going to be a professional athlete, or I'm going to be a professional gamer, or I'm going to just work on computers. Get out there, learn about science, engineering, developing, learning, growing, inventing, and we need skilled trades, folks. We need people to build houses. We need people to fix cars. We need people that can do these things. So get out there, learn these things, and remember that a strong economy begins with productive citizens. Don't sit on your hands and ask for the government to give you free food because you don't make enough money because you work at McDonald's for 15 years at minimum wage. That doesn't cut it. Go out there and become a productive citizen, right? That's how you make a strong economy, and support those who serve. Please support these people. These veterans, some of these guys and gals they've landed on the beaches in Normandy. They were in Pearl Harbor when it was bombed. They've been in Afghanistan, in Vietnam. They've been all over the world trying to support and protect our country and support and protect others in their countries. That's what we do. We're Americans, right? Support our veterans, support our reservists, our first responders, the police, the fire. These people put their lives on the line every day so that you can run around and scream and yell. Did you see what happened in New York when the Knicks won? These animals tore the city up, right? Buses on fire, police cars damaged, property damage to businesses. For what? I thought this was for good. I thought this was fun. I thought this was something great that happened. But we've turned it into something else. We need to not tolerate this anymore. This type of actions should not be tolerated. And we, as the people, should not allow it. But contribute to our nation's strength. Find ways to help people succeed. And build resilient communities. And part of that is knowing your neighbors, volunteering, and supporting, like I said, your local businesses, local food producers. Learn about basic preparedness. Just don't sit and wait for the government to take care of it, and don't be a problem. Be part of the solution of our country, and cultivate civic literacy. Read history. Understand where we came from, really, not what the media says, not what social media says. Read about it and understand where we came from, and study our founding documents. And we now know there's 4 of those. Study those, learn how this system works, and pass this on to our younger generations. That's it. The more people understand our freedoms, the more likely they are to protect them. And at the end of the day, America isn't just a government. It's a collection of millions of people making millions of decisions every single day. And every one of us contribute to the future. Every one of us. So instead of arguing endlessly over spilled milk from centuries ago or decades ago, maybe we can spend a little more time building something worth leaving behind for our next generation. So we've done hard things before. We're going to do hard things again. We're Americans. We're innovative. We adapt. And we persevere. Okay. And in the last 250 years, if nothing else has been proven, it's that this country is capable of extraordinary things when people work together. Happy birthday, America. Be kind, my friends. Please be curious, learn, ask questions, have real conversations, support your communities, appreciate your freedoms, never, ever stop learning. And until next time, be well. We'll see you on the next episode of Joe's Hot Takes 25.